Good afternoon, Elena. We are the Practical Advantage Communications students, and we are members of this agency, which is a student-run agency at Cal State Fullerton. And we are a part of the spring 2021 semester. My name is Alexis Martinez. We have Jessica Bernal, Monica Lampaya, Lux Medi, and Catherine Tagagi. And so prior to this meeting, we actually sent you our final campaign book, which included a detailed roadmap of our campaign and kind of what went on this semester. So we're going to go ahead and discuss the key points, and we will dive right into it. Next slide.
So the first step for us was learning a little bit more about Think Together, and you guys are a California-based nonprofit organization that was created in 1997 as a response to drug and gang activity in the Shalimar neighborhood of Costa Mesa. Since then, Think Together has branched out to over 400 California schools and serving more than 200,000 students. Your mission is consistent of partnering with schools to change the odds for kids while creating a community where all children, despite their socioeconomic status, can receive the same quality education, preparing them for college and career readiness. Next slide. The first step in our campaign was to meet with you in the client consultation. This is where we found out that you were seeking a collection of social media content that was on brand, educational, and experimented with a variety of formats. During this time, we also gained access to the resources for the content creation process. Some examples are the brand guidelines, industry research, the student smart sheet that shares all the stories from parents, teachers, and staff, as well as a donor list. In this meeting, we also decided the structure of how we will deliver you content, and we agreed to do that in batches to allocate time for feedback and revisions. We also scheduled an agreement of every other week check-ins to allow time for an analysis of our progress and readjust goals when needed. Next slide. So one of our first things that we did was to conduct a SWOT analysis of Think Together to identify the internal strengths and weaknesses and the external opportunities and threats of the organization. So here are some key ones that we wanted to go over. So you guys have a strong network of programs, a very consistent mission. You're very diverse in the students that you helped. You have established donors and a very unique to no competitors. Your social media presence is active, and you have an extensive library of photos and videos. Some weaknesses that we identified was at the beginning of the semester when looking through the social media, we saw that the existing content was really great, always on brand, consistent, but sometimes it wasn't garnishing the most engagement from your followers. We also didn't see too much donor recognition content, and when we gained access to the student stories, we saw that a lot of them had not been used on social media just yet, and we were made aware that you had a small social media team and your outreach is only to California at the moment. And so some opportunities that we definitely identified was increasing social media posting frequencies with our supplemental evergreen content that we created, incorporate the use of more videos and also the story posts from the students. We will also use the testimonials to do that and incorporate industry research into our post. The threats that we identified when we initially did the SWOT analysis was the social media algorithms. Sometimes they can be hard to overcome and make sure that all of our content is being shown to all of your followers. COVID-19 is getting better now, but I know that you, as a program, you had to adhere to CDC guidelines, and if it were to worsen and we would have to stick to doing distance learning, our content could get repetitive of only speaking of COVID-19. And then program funding being cut because of the economic uncertainty that COVID-19 was getting cut, that was creating. Next slide. And as a team, we sat together and we identified a core problem. So your existing social media team excels at following established brand guidelines on color palettes, logo usage, and communication style when creating social media content. They've also done an amazing job at creating unique campaigns and creating original graphics. However, due to the small team, it can become challenging to compile evergreen content and maximize the use of all of your archived resources that haven't been posted about yet. Next slide.
Thank you, Monica. So the target audiences. After doing some findings, we realized that the majority of our people benefiting from our program are families with a child in K-12. Some of these parents consist of co-parents or single parents with demanding jobs or schedules that prevent them from picking up their children after school. In addition, there are some of the parents that are underrepresented groups or low-income communities in need of affordable and after-school programs. Our secondary key audience consists of current and prospective donors, community leaders, educators, and government officials who share an interest in Think Together's mission and will either provide, currently, advocate, or funding. They also serve Think Together by being a third-party influencer or being opinion leaders. Next slide, please. The message behind each of our posts aims to communicate its mission, that is, changing the odds for kids through education, increasing public support, and influencing change among community and government officials. These posts also carry an educational tone, utilizing a call to action to advocate for funding and expansion of Think Together programs. Next slide, please. As we all are aware, we envision an active and engaging social media platform presence across all of Think Together's social media platforms, such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Next slide.
Now, looking at our goals for the semester, in our proposal, we started off with 3 goals, which we then condensed into the following 2 goals. Goal number 1 was to create social media content aimed at increasing brand awareness among local communities. And we did this by creating informational and evergreen content related to Think Together's mission. Our objectives were to create a social media calendar similar to last semester's and create general educational posts focusing on national days, student stories, and advocacy posts. Next slide, please. Goal number 2 focused on delivering a collection of social media content that experimented with graphics, photos, and videos that Think Together can use from May to July. Our objective here was to experiment editing Think Together's shared photos and creating graphics through Canva. Next slide, please. So here are some examples of the content we created. There were advocacy posts that displayed statistics, research, and important brand information. Testimonials were created based off statements from students, staff, and parents from Think Together. And we also created posts related to national holidays that shared awareness of brand-related programs. Next slide, please. And the tactics and tools we used to achieve these goals were primarily done through Google Docs. Through Google Docs, we created a content calendar where we wrote our captions and the type of post we were creating. However, we stopped using this document per your suggestion and focused on our visual guide, which showed the graphic and the caption together. Canva was our primary editing tool for graphics, and Dropbox is where we stored our approved content for you to easily download. And each team member was responsible for creating 3 to 4 posts for each month from May to July. Next slide, please.
So with any campaign, of course, we will encounter challenges. So some of the ones that we reflected upon was the unclear understanding we had about the goals at the start of our campaign. So what we mean by that is, as a team, we really had to sit down and understand, with this being our first experience, what is a realistic and achievable goal, and make sure that we weren't over-promising and underperforming. So this came to a lot of check-ins with you to readjust our goals that kind of took up a bit of our time. So that was one of our challenges. Another challenge that we have was overcoming the learning curve of writing for nonprofit organizations. And what we mean by this, I would love to use an example. So there was a piece that we wanted to write about juvenile crime prime time, which that is the time when kids are let out of school and before their parents can pick them up, and where there seems to be a significant increase in crime amongst young students. And so when we wrote the piece and included the statistics and sent it over for revisions, you were very supportive in helping us understand that learning curve, that we want to make sure that we are not villainizing the students who are part of a systemic issue, and rather creating an uplifting and motivational tone in our speaking. It was a huge learning curve for us, and it was something that I think now we are all more confident in and can work towards. Another challenge that we had encountered was little to no previous experience in graphic design, as well as working with a brand kit with a specific logo, size, and colors, and all that kind of stuff. So it was a learning curve that we had to just at all times keep brand guidelines in mind, make sure that our graphic design looked eye-catching, but also reflected what Think Together, what is a presentable Think Together post. And then all meetings were virtual due to COVID-19, so that we definitely had some times where we wish we could have been together working on certain projects, but that's just how it was. Next slide.
Okay, thank you, Monica. However, despite some of these challenges, we did have an abundant amount of amazing resources. First, we had the luxury of having the previous team's work to go off of. We also had some really great resources that you provided us with, which included the Think Together Canva account, the Dropbox filled with a ton of pictures to use, as well as your brand guidelines. We pulled information from the Think Together website, as well as the annual report and Think Together's blog. We also made use of the links you sent us to pull relevant research from After School Alliance, the CDC, as well as After School Network. Lastly, we also made use of personal testimonials that were provided to us through the brand smart sheet. Next slide, please. We did come across some major timeline changes as well as timeline goals. At first, we were originally asked to create copy until September, and then we later reduced it down until just July. In doing this, we were able to shift our focus from the quantity of content to the quality of our content. On the screen, you'll also see our original content calendar that we proposed using. However, as you know, we did switch this over to just the visual guide document because it was an easier way for you to see the caption as well as our graphic at the same time. Next slide, please. Okay, and lastly, we have a quick snapshot of our timeline that we used internally throughout the semester, which included the individual weeks, activities for those weeks, as well as some goals in our notes. We use this to be able to keep track of all our progress, as well as goals for finishing content and set deadlines within our own team to be able to deliver things on time. Next slide, please.
All right, so let's go ahead and fast forward now to our campaign outcomes. We were able to create evergreen content, make use of testimonials, create aesthetically pleasing content, and we are confident that with this content, we will be able to increase Think Together's engagement on social media platforms. So for the evergreen content that we created, it included general educational posts, after school and expanded learning, as well as holiday-related posts. In addition to this, we created advocacy posts, which were research-based. They use interesting statistics. So with this information, we would then create a post that could explain an idea with a colorful and informational graphic, which supported that idea. Next, we went ahead and experimented with the testimonials. So we were able to pull the student success stories and the amazing stories that the staff, students, and program leaders from working with Think Together. So we went ahead and pulled those from the story questionnaire, and what we learned from these testimonials is that they really added value to Think Together as a nonprofit organization because all these stories were really amazing stories. So we really wanted to use those in the social media to, again, gain more engagement. And then for creating all this, eye-catching content, the graphics, colorful and fun, we had to remember to stay within brand guidelines. And so it was really useful having Think Together's Canva account and being able to, again, use the color palette and the font styles to really create some great graphics for Think Together. Lastly, we're not able to measure the engagement just yet because, again, we haven't used our content on social media platforms just yet, but we are confident that, going back and forth with you and your marketing team, that hopefully we will be able to use it on social media platforms to, again, increase that engagement. Next slide. Okay, so for delivering content, we had two different ways. The first one was the Google Doc, and then we also then created a Dropbox. So for the Google Doc, it was more of a visual guide, and we would place the graphic along with the copy, and so it was just kind of easier to read. It was again a visual guide for you and your team to go in there, make suggestions, and then we can easily all as a team just go in there and edit it. So that worked really well. And then we also got to create a Dropbox, which we added all of the approved graphics on there. And this was just an easier way for you and your team to go ahead and go in and retrieve them. And they're all stored in here in the Dropbox. Next slide. Okay, so for measurement and evaluation of success. So we were able to receive some really positive feedback from you and your marketing team on that Google Doc. So we would make the edits and revisions per your suggestions, and that really did help us out a lot. Then we were able to create the amount of content asked, which was one of our goals from May to June. And then we also got comfortable with creating the graphics and all of this. So we added some extra content for July as well. And lastly, so for the metrics, like I had mentioned, we have not been able to use our graphics or anything, none of the content on social media platforms just yet. So we're not able to measure that, but we would really love for Think Together to see our work on social media and see, how it works out and if you get more engagement. All right, next slide.
Now, as we're all aware that you would like to work with our future summer team as well, here are some recommendations that we would like to offer our successors, such as brand guidelines. Our team found this document really resourceful with regards to the theme and the tone that Think Together uses, colors, writing style, and much more. This would help the new team get adjusted just as fast as we were able to. And the way, just like Alex has mentioned, we would request, they should request access to Think Together's Canva brand kit. Having your brand kit with us was a huge support, as it provided us with almost all the usable and relevant pictures of Think Together, a usable color palette, numerous types of themes that go along with our brand guidelines, and much more. And of course, other valuable resources that our organization might have by summer. Next slide. Next slide.
Yes, thank you, Lex. So this concludes our presentation for you. It was really a great experience and such a pleasure working with Think Together. And with you, Elena, I feel like you gave us so much knowledge and wisdom, from your experience. And so we are confident that that the work that we did with our content, we hope that, we get it to use and that it strengthens Think Together's communication endeavors.